Okay, welcome to our monthly speaker meeting for Pro Organic Belize. Today we have Gustavo Requena from the Yaakshe Conservation Trust, and he will be talking to us about the trust and what they do, and also restoring degraded soil through inga alley cropping. So we just have a couple of ground rules. If everybody can stay muted, please. The presentation is being recorded and it will be available on the Pro Organic Belize website early next week. And anybody can go there and view it if you know somebody that missed it today. But if everybody can please stay muted, because we all know what background noise does. And oops. Okay, what we'll do for questions, and we will be able to ask Gustavo questions kind of as he's doing his presentation, and then who knows what tangent we'll get off on, but he's okay with that.
Right.
So for asking a question, since everybody's going to be muted, if you can go to your Zoom screen, and on mine has more, and under more it has reactions, and under reactions it has raise hand. So if you can just, if you have a question for him, just click on that, and then I will let you know to unmute yourself and ask your question, and he'll answer it as we go along, and then you can mute yourself again. And so that's how we'll do the questions and answers. And then if there's more questions at the end, we're good with that too. Just a quick introduction to Pro Organic Belize. You can go to our Facebook page for POB details. And then our Facebook group would be for discussion. Our membership is usually on a yearly basis. Also details on our website, which has tons of information on it. Karen does an excellent job in keeping that up and putting more information on there. And it's pro-organicbelize.org. That's where you can also view all of our past speaker meetings. If you go to the speakers part of that, and you can just click on any of them and view the meetings that we've had for the last more than a year and a half now via Zoom. Also on the website is information about our consumer group, and what that is you can sign up for that, send an email, and to proorganicbelize@gmail.com, and ask to be put on the consumer group list. You get a weekly list of produce that's available from one of our farmers up in San Antonio Village. And this farmer has been certified that he does not use pesticides. So take advantage of that. Okay. All right, so let me see. I think Mary wanted me to mention the Vulcan. Karen, why don't you just give a brief thing about what's going on with that, real brief, and maybe you can put one of the links for the petition in the chat session if possible.
Well, I can mention the link that's got a lot of information. It's www. Either Water Belize or BelizeWater.com. I can't remember which one it is, but I'll be adding a lot more information. Apparently, Ed has received a letter from someone from Vulcan who's reassuring him that they're going to, do everything possible to be wonderful. But so far, I've been doing a lot of research of their history, and they've had a lot of violations wherever they are. And there's another group I found in near New Braunfels, Texas, that had been fighting a 15,000 acre, another huge tract of land, beautiful land that they were trying to use to get their stone material for the building roads. And there's quite a sophisticated website of this group of people who've actually, I think they've succeeded, because the last thing I read was that the judge in Austin, Texas, said they cannot get the proper permits for the air pollution. You're not only talking water pollution, you're talking air pollution. I'm going to be posting on the website the information about some of the health effects affecting people around these quarries. The dust from the quarry, the noise from the quarry. And of course, here we're talking about, you know, one of the most magnificent reefs in the world. And they're going to be, you know, pulling their boats and shipping out land. They'll be shipping Belize to build roads in the US when they can easily do some of the research that's being done now about building roads. They're building roads with broken glass and plastic. You know, what a good solution that is. It's got a double solution. So these companies have to start paying attention to ways that we can do things without destroying the environment. My 2 cents.
All right, great. Okay, so I am going to turn the screen over to Gustavo, and he will get started.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I am Gustavo Requena. I am the Community Outreach and Livelihoods Director at Yache Conservation Trust. And I am a farmer. I've been a high school teacher for 16 years. I do manage 5 apiaries, do produce corn, beans, rice, have a small ecotourism facility here in San Pedro, Colombia. And really, it is a pleasure to be sharing with you the experience that we've had with inga cropping at Yache Conservation Trust. So a little bit about Yache Conservation Trust. Yache Conservation Trust started in 1997 from a grassroots movement of community members in Golden Stream, Medina Bank, Big Falls, who recognized the importance of taking action to protect the waterways in the area that was going to be affected, given that there was a parcel of land that was going to be that was up for sale. And so really that has evolved into what we now have as an organization that is managing the area called the Maya Golden Landscape, which is 770,000 acres of land that is comprised of a mosaic of protected areas, communities, farmlands, all of this rich area in the southern part of Belize. And we have been able to move from this grassroots organization to a very strong organization that advocates for the sustainable use of resources within our area of focus. And so currently we manage the Golden Stream Corridor Preserve. We co-manage the Bladen Nature Reserve. Golden Stream Corridor Preserve, by the way, is a privately owned protected area. Bladen Nature Reserve is the crown jewel of protected areas, terrestrial protected areas in Belize. Really, it is a protected area that has the highest level of protection, where only educational activities and research are allowed. And so we co-manage that protected area along with the Forest Department. And we also co-manage Maya Mountain North Forest Reserve in the northern part of the Toledo district. Our work is really with indigenous communities, where we are promoting the sustainable use of land. We recognize that indigenous people are stewards of these natural resources. And so what we're doing is we are giving them additional tools that will allow them to continue living in harmony with nature, protecting the natural resources, and really having that impact on the land in a manner where we ensuring that future generations will have these resources for them to use and enjoy. So because of the evolution that has happened from 1997 to present, we are operating under three main programs. We have the Protected Areas Management Program, which focuses on the protected areas, the enforcement aspect of our work. We also have the Community Outreach and Livelihoods Program, which, like I mentioned earlier, works with these communities to bring about the sustainable use of these resources through the use of climate smart practices, which I will be elaborating a little bit further in this presentation. And then we also have the science program. As an organization, we recognize that decision-making has to be based on science. And so we have a science team that is monitoring the impacts that we are having and informing decision-making within the organization. You see a map there on the screen. That is the map of the Maya Golden landscape. And we can appreciate all the protected areas that are within this area, and also the communities. The communities really form a very important part of this landscape, because protected areas really cannot function if there are locked up places. And so that becomes important for us. So moving on, we promote climate smart practices within the Maya Golden landscape. Three of the main climate smart practices that we promote, one being the cacao-based agroforestry, and that is done within 10 of the communities where we work. Basically, we have a system where farmers are cultivating organic cacao within a system that mimics as close as possible the natural forest. And so within these agroforestry farms, you will have timber trees, fruit trees, herbal medicines, spices, and all of these all working within a system to improve the livelihoods of the farmers through economic improvement for the family. But also a very important aspect of this is the whole impact that a system like this has on biodiversity. And so when I refer to biodiversity, I'm talking animals, birds, but also a very important part of this is the soil, because the soil is composed of all of these microorganisms that all play a very important and critical role in ensuring that our soils continue being productive. So we also have the first ever agroforestry concession within a protected area in Belize. Actually, we have 936 acres within the Maya Mountain North Forest Reserve that has been given to farmers through regulated access, where they are cultivating cacao. They have space, they have 335 acres of cacao-based agroforestry, 110 acres of annual crops. And within those farms, we have conservation zones that allow for the movement of biodiversity. And so it is the first of its kind in the country. I think that certainly it has been having huge success. It commenced in 2015. In 2018, the cacao farm started producing, and we started off with like about 3,550 pounds in 2018 of wet cacao beans. And that has increased to 112,000 pounds of wet beans, all being sold to the Maya Mountain Cacao Company. And so we can see how it is that this protected area is actually improving the livelihoods of these people because of the access that they have. We also work with beekeeping. We recognize the importance of our pollinators. And so we have beekeeping being done within these agroforestry farms and also in the protected areas. It is such that the farmers are using this to also, again, increase the income for the family, for their families. Given that it is complementary to a system like the agroforestry work that we're doing, it's a natural fit. We also, under the beekeeping, we're also working through the science program to document native bee species and their presence within these agroforestry farms. And so we do have some preliminary data that is indicating that we have quite a number of native bee species within these protected areas and agroforestry farms. And we have to carry out more research to be able to, have data to inform decision making as it relates to how it is that we move forward with beekeeping. We also do the inga cropping, which is going to be the essence of my presentation today, and inga as shade trees in diversified fruit tree farms. And all of this really is geared towards the reduction on the reliance of slash and burn and its impact on biodiversity. The idea really here is to mitigate the risk of the negative impacts of slash and burn on soil, community property, farms, etc. And so what we're doing is that we're giving farmers options. And at the end of the day, we recognize that we are working with indigenous communities. We recognize that it is a part of the tradition. And we do not stop farmers from doing the slash and burn. We give them options. And if they choose to do slash and burn, then we also have the capacity to be able to support them with equipment, trainings, and other resources that they will need in order to ensure that they conduct a safe burn. At the end of the day, that is of great importance to us because we recognize the risk that escape fires pose on fragile systems like the cacao agroforestry systems that we have. Again, the whole idea here also is to mitigate the effects of climate change on livelihoods. Monoculture systems, we all know, are very vulnerable to the shifts in weather pattern. And so we are building more resilient food production systems within these communities so that, for example, the agroforestry system, if the cacao crop fails, then we have all of these other fruit trees that are can potentially offset that loss that farmer may experience because of that. And so getting into the alley cropping system within the Maya Golden landscape, this has been something that Yashik started in about 2010, 2011, thereabout. And really, it was all geared towards trying to, like I said earlier, curb that reliance on slash and burn. And so we started with Madre Cacao, the Gliricidia Cipium, in alleys. And really, it was a very attractive option, particularly because this is a species that is readily available within the communities where we work. The fact that it is propagated vegetatively really facilitated the ease of establishment of these alley cropping systems with Madre Cacao. However, we realized that there were some major drawbacks to this species, particularly because of the limited biomass that it produced, leaves, because we recognize that weeds were major, and I'm using the word weeds very loosely here. These unwanted plants were within that system, and the biomass that the Madre Cacao produced was not enough to suppress these unwanted plants. And we also realized that there was slow recovery of the plants after pruning or coppicing. And so really the farmers were not too sold on this system as a viable option to increase yields. Again, we had another major challenge that the madrigal cow was susceptible to lodging. You have them in rows, and after a while, they start falling over. We had a ground mold damaging the roots, and then that really affected the uptake of this technique with farmers. And so in 2012, we organized an exchange visit to the Inga Foundation in Honduras, where we took farmers from within these communities to go and see firsthand how it is that the Inga alley cropping works in Honduras. And so really that served as a springboard to get these farmers to actually become interested in this option. And so that really helped because they were already looking for an option in alley cropping. They had the experience with the magic cacao. And so when they came across this Inga alley in Honduras, the use of the Inga species, they were convinced that, you know what, this is the option for several reasons. And I am going to get into that a little further, but I want to get into the establishment and using the Inga plots. And by the way, if anybody has questions like Ginny said earlier, feel free to indicate, and I am going to respond to your question. So to establish the Inga plot, a couple of things are very important. One, we need to procure quality seeds, which are generally available in the months of February, June, and October. These months kind of are varying, particularly because of the changes in the rainfall pattern. And so, but as a general rule, these are the months when we have seeds available. The seeds must be given proper care, particularly because the seeds are start germinating very, very, very quickly. As soon as you remove the seeds from the pods, then those seeds within 24, 48 hours, if those seeds are not sowed into a nursery, then you can have issues. So that is very important. They do not last for too long outside. If you keep them moist, they are going to germinate. But I recommend that you move into establishing your Inga nursery as quick as possible. Once you have established your nursery and you give it the proper care, then after 3 to 4 months, these Inga saplings should be ready for transplanting. Okay, and this again we recommend that it be done during the rainy season to ensure that you have maximum success with transplanting and minimal mortality of saplings. For us, a general rule is that these plots should be, the alleys should be 15 to 18 feet apart. That has worked because of the crops that we want, that farmers have been cultivating in the alley. And we transplant saplings that are about 18 to 24 inches apart. Further in the presentation, I'm going to talk about how it is that this species works well for erosion control on slopes. And so we'll see how it is that, you know, having this density really contributes to that. Once these plants once the saplings are transplanted, I think the management of the saplings after transplanting becomes critical, particularly if you are cultivating or you want to establish this system within an area that has a very serious weed infestation. Well, I will speak about what we had here in Toledo. We had what we call the corn grass, a very aggressive weed that really, once it establishes itself, it has so much seeds within the soil that even if you chop it, you have new weeds coming up. And so the weed management becomes important because the Inga saplings need to be given that opportunity to be able to grow above the grass or any other weeds that are there, so it can start shading out those weeds. Generally, once those saplings have grown, after about a year and a half, those saplings are actually forming a canopy over all of this area. And so then you have the shading out of these weeds, grasses, etc. And then you can start having the accumulation of the mulch. what we found out is that the leaves, once these plants have about 1.5 year, the amount of biomass that it's producing is actually forming this thick layer of mulch on the soil that suppresses all the weeds. So you have this biomass accumulation on the soil surface, which really is what you want. I want to emphasize here that one of the big challenges as a farmer, really, that I think we are facing, not just as Belize, but globally, is the fact that you know, soil produces, you plant seeds, it produces, but after a while, one of the key elements or one of the key parts of soil that becomes lost when we have this continuous cultivation within an area is the organic material. And so really when you have soil and it doesn't have organic material, you're moving towards sandy, a sandy situation. And so you start having all of these issues that are that start affecting the yields of your crops. So that is why this plant becomes a very viable option, because of the amount of organic material that it incorporates into the soil. Bear in mind here that we're talking of a zero-till cultivation method here. So we're not plowing, we're not harrowing, we're not doing all of these practices. It is this accumulation of biomass that is loosening up the soil. It's all of these organic materials that are attracting all of these microorganisms that are doing their magic to ensure that we can have the soil remaining very, very productive. So after about 2.5 years, we coppice these inga trees at about 5 feet in height at 45 degrees. And that material there is all added into the alley to ensure that even more organic material is added to this area. Once that has happened, then you can take out the thicker ones for firewood, or you can place them at the base of the coppice tree to ensure erosion control. Because what we want is that we want to ensure that when the rains fall into this area, we have minimal loss of this organic material from within that system. Thus, the recommendation to have the organic and the branches either be put along the rows of ingas that were planted. Also ensuring that that area, all the freshly cut leaves are placed into the alley. And of course, you want to chop that up finely, all the branches, small branches and leaves, and you leave it there for about 4 to 6 days, after which you will plant your seeds. We have had experience of farmers planting vegetables, corn, beans, root crops. All of these do very well within the system. But I think one of the important things to keep in mind is the fact that the inga regenerates itself rapidly. And so you don't want to have these branches that are being regenerated meet your crop if your crop has not matured yet, because then it starts producing too much shade, which can negatively impact your crop that you have within that system. So really it is about planting short-term crops within the alleys. As you will appreciate there, I think we have some kalalu, okra, cassava, and other vegetables that farmers have planted within that area. And really, I think that is really some of the success that we've had within the alley cropping systems in these communities. Thing about it is that you can use the system both within the dry and the wet season. For the individuals who may be familiar with the planting of corn, you know, we have the wet corn season. We have the matambre, which is planted in the month of November. And so those work very well within this inga alley cropping system. To the point that I was making earlier, the inga recovers within a year after coppicing. And so what we recommend is that a farmer establishes multiple plots, minimum 4, to ensure that he is able to rotate from one plot to the other. And especially if the farmer has the intention of cultivating enough food for his family, his or her family, then it becomes important to have multiple plots so that you can move from one area to the other in a kind of rotational basis, so that you always have some in use, some in the recovery phase, and some ready for coppicing. So when we look at the inga cropping system, the fact that inga is this nitrogen fixing plant and is able to build all of this, or has all of this symbiotic relationship going on within its root system, as you can appreciate there in the picture, those are nodules from the inga trees. So that really is where we have the essence of the magic that inga does in the soil. For us as an organization, this is important because it contributes to the protection of standing forest. Since cultivation, like I mentioned earlier, is sedentary and the branches are very good for firewood, so we do not have to put additional pressure on standing forests if we have inga cropping as a system for farming. The whole reduction of slash and burn agriculture, which, like I mentioned earlier, really is a system that destroys the organic component of the soil, which is very, very critical to ensure that we have the natural cycling of nutrients within this soil system. And so that is why we encourage all of this, the establishment of these of the inga system, because it helps in the protection of the soil biota. And that is what ensures that we have the continuous cycling of the nutrients within those plots. If that is disrupted, then you start moving towards degraded land, because really that is what happens when we have degraded land. We have the loss of the organic material, and when you have the loss of organic material, it means that we're going to have the loss of the soil microbes. And so then we start thinking of how it is that we add nutrients to this soil, and certainly chemical fertilizers or synthetic fertilizers is not the option, particularly because that is not going to contribute to ensuring that you have the microorganisms which are key to ensuring that this soil stays alive. And so that becomes important within the system, the protection of that soil biota. Because of the network of root systems that this plant forms in the soil, with all the biomass that accumulates on the soil surface, you have this very good method, or what you have good soil coverage, which certainly reduces soil erosion. I think that is also very important to indicate that this system can be used for soil conservation, particularly along slopes. And we do have several demonstration plots within the Maya Golden landscape where we have inga being established on slopes, and we have a reduction of soil erosion in these farms. So we do have some preliminary data that is indicating that there is an increase in the yields of black beans and corn within these systems. And I quoted some of the 700 pounds of corn in 0.5 acres, and that is low if compared to the other farming system. But bear in mind here that this cornfield had been attacked by coatis and peccaries because of the amount of wildlife within these systems. And so, yes, this might be low, but I think that certainly we have this data that is indicating that we have increase in yields from these crops. Another advantage of using this cropping system is that there is a reduction in time doing weed management. If you looked at the picture that I showed in a previous slide, you'll appreciate that these alleys are actually there's no weed in there, and that is very important, because then it means that the cost of production your inputs is reduced because you don't have to spend time doing weed management within the system. Again,
Gustavo,
yes.
Karen had a question of how do you control the weeds when you're doing that step?
So what happens is that we have because this biomass that accumulates on the surface of the soil is very thick. You have very, very limited chances of any weeds popping up within your crop. But if there are weeds within that crop, then what the farmer does is very easy manual weed control. You uproot these weeds, you chop them up with your machete, and that is it. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. But very limited weeds are able to pop up within the alley when you have this thick layer of organic material blanketing the soil.
So I have a question. Would you talk about corn grass? We have a grass that's grown up in our cornfield that's impossible to get rid of.
Yes.
It grows very tall, it tassels, and can we put like a huge layer of something on top of that to kill it?
Well, what happens is that so we had issues. I mean, one of our demonstration farms is where that was the only vegetation in that area, and so the farmer said, well, hey, let's check if this works. And so we established that inga within that corn grass plot. He had corn, and his basically he had given up on planting corn because he did not get any yield. So what happens is that is why I said the management becomes important, because he managed that inga plot until all of this grass was destroyed. Why? Because that grass, if I mean, the one that we're talking about, the corn grass, is that it has that propensity to produce seeds by the millions, right? And so what happens with the inga cropping system is that you basically kill those seeds, and then you because those seeds stay dormant for so long. I think eventually those seeds are lost from within that system. So right now that farmer has he plants corn within that inga cropping system, and he has zero corn grass.
So the shade would be what kills the corn grass?
Right, the shade, because that alley cropping system is going to form the inga is going to form a canopy, and that canopy doesn't allow any light to penetrate, and so once the light doesn't penetrate, the weeds cannot grow. So if you go into a alley cropping system, when you look up those alleys, you basically are seeing organic material, which are leaves that have fallen from the leaf. Only that is what is in between these alleys. You have no weeds.
So how does the corn grow in that shade?
All right, and that is why I said once that tree, you have to coppice the tree. Remember, you cut the inga, you cut off the inga, you open that area, right? You coppice all of these inga plants, and then you're going to plant your seeds, because you want the sunlight to penetrate. I mean, you want sun to reach your germinating corn and all of this. And that is why I said you have to plant annual crops, because what happens is that once, if you appreciate the bottom picture of this slide, you'll realize that there are some inga that have been coppiced completely, and it is within that area that the crops are planted. So you will have to cut off all the top of those inga trees at chest height at 45 degrees, right? And so you remove all of the top of those inga trees, you plant your crop, that inga is going to regenerate itself, and then before that inga canopy forms again, you've harvested your crop.
So the coppicing is the way that you cut the tree?
Yes, that is the technical word for the cutting down of the tree. But remember, you're cutting at about 5 feet chest height for me, at about 5 feet, so that you have enough space for more shoots to regenerate from that stem that you leave there.
Okay. I think that answered a question that somebody had sent.
Okay, very good,
Yes.
very good. And so if I continue,
yes,
right here. So we are seeing here. So to answer your question, if you look at this picture on the slide, you realize that all of those, you basically have zero weeds within those alleys, right?
Mhm.
Because that's a picture of the alley cropping system right there. Basically, you have all of this canopy of the inga shading the weeds, and so no weeds are able to generate them or grow there. And basically, what this system is doing is that it's providing ecosystem services, the whole cycling of water, provision, and the providing of clean air. All of this, these natural processes continue functioning when you have a system like this. I think I had mentioned earlier, Inga alley can be used in any topography, both flatland and slopes. Have given very good results when we integrate the Inga alley cropping system within these farms. Degraded soils can be restored using this farming practice. As I was discussing earlier with that farmer, basically that farmer had given up on this area because you know, too much weeds, especially grass. In one of our demonstration farms, we basically had a pasture. A farmer had pasture for 25, 30 years there. So when he wanted to plant corn in that area, it just did not, it was not giving yields because, I mean, the soil is dead basically. And so what we did is that we established Inga alley within an Inga alley cropping system within that pasture. And now that farmer is harvesting corn, peppers, beans from that same pasture. You can see that thick layer of mulch. You can see all of this soil biota coming back in this area where it was basically pasture. Okay, so definitely it is one of those solutions for the restoring of degraded lands here in Belize. I mean, we do have a lot of degraded lands, lands that have been used for pasture, particularly because of the compaction and the loss of your seed bank within that soil because of all of these years of exposure. The soil is exposed, seeds that are in that soil are baked in the dry season. So you basically lose that soil bank, that soil seed bank. And so Inga really helps in bringing back those soils by incorporating that organic material there. Biodiversity also benefits from Inga because then you have the small mammals that come to feed on the Inga seeds, you know, the rabbits, the agoutis, the gibnuts. All of these have been documented within these alley cropping systems in the Mayagulan landscape. Of course, you have the birds that benefit and then the bees.
So
sure, go ahead.
Can you let us know where to get the seeds?
Okay, well, yeah, we do have a lot of, I mean, we have at least 19 demonstration plots in the Maya Golden landscape within these communities, Indian Creek, San Miguel, Medina Bank, Golden Stream. All of these communities have these demonstration plots that we help establish within those farms. And these farmers do have Inga seeds for sale. The last time I think they were selling for like 25 cents per seed, and they don't have enough because you have people who are buying it. They are seeing the benefit of using the Inga alley cropping system to you know, increase or to restore degraded soils. And so there is a demand for Inga seeds, and I would be more than happy to help connect anybody who is interested with our farmers from San Miguel. We have we have Mr. Kus, Mr. Kukul, all of these farmers who have seeds. Once it's available, you can. I mean, I know we have farmers from who work in the Vaca area who came down for a visit. When they visited, the seeds were not available, and so we connected. We facilitated the shipping of seeds to them to ensure that they could have gotten this within their area, because definitely it is convincing when you visit one of these alley cropping systems. You can actually appreciate the restoration it does to the soil in that area. Go ahead.
There's two questions. One of them is, this species of inga is from Honduras. Is that correct?
This was it is Inga edulis that is being used. That is where we source the seeds. Yes.
Okay.
I want to also let the viewers and parts the audience know that we do have several, in fact, many native Inga species here in Belize, and one of the challenges with the native species is that the biomass that it produces is not as much as the Inga edulis. Some of them can be found along the river banks. The challenge here is that the biomass is not as much as the edulis, and that is why the edulis is the most suited species for this system, this type of restoration work.
Okay, this person asked, if that particular one is not native to Belize, then has the research team done research to make sure it is not invasive?
It is something that we have we took into consideration. The Inga Foundation, when we visited, had 20 years of experience working with this species, and so that was one of the questions that we raised, and they said that it doesn't have that propensity.
Okay. Another question is, can other perhaps similar trees work? I know you said that you had tried the madre de cacao and that didn't produce enough biomass.
Right. So we have used the madre cacao. I know that there were some farmers who were using the lucina. But again, the challenge there is the amount of leaves, the amount of biomass that these species produce is not enough to suppress the weed the way how the Inga edulis does it. And that is what kind of is discouraging to our farmers. At the end of the day, if it is degraded land that you're working with, you have to have the amount of biomass be produced to ensure that you can have the restoration of that soil. And so I do not know that they have other species in Belize that are being used other than madre cacao that we work with, and lucina.
Okay. Another question is, if you established an alley system and you did not want to plant crop for a year, would you still have to coppice the trees? How large or high would the trees grow?
Okay.
And at what point would the weeds return and bush take over, or would it remain an arched shaded area?
It is going to remain an arch shaded area. We have one of the farmers in San Miguel who said, so he had this Inga alley cropping system. He planted corn, beans, and he left 3 rows. And he had his chickens running around on his farm. And he said, you know what, that is where my chickens go, and they have a feast. And so he opted not to coppice those 3 rows. I think he established in 2016, and he still has those 3 rows that he has not coppiced. And those Inga trees probably go to, I would say, maybe 30 feet high, but they keep the whole area shaded, because you still have that canopy that has shaded out, that has not allowed the sunlight to penetrate, and so the weeds, they stayed suppressed.
And Karen asks, or she says that she's looking at her almond tree and thinking that might provide a tremendous amount of shade.
Yeah, one of the challenges with almond, and you have other species like almond, that they have this they have what you call allelopathy, which is the trees, the leaves have chemicals that actually suppress weeds, but because it accumulates, because the leaves have that that property, then you are actually suppressing weeds, but it is not going to allow for crops to grow in that area. And so that would be a concern that I would have. I think that in Inga, it is not as pronounced as in, for example, almond. Hammonds, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the almendra.
Yeah, the almendra. Yes. So that is the problem with almendra, because it has that it has chemicals that have allelopathic characteristics, which does not allow for other species to thrive in its shade, and thus that is why that is not used in let's say and I'm not promoting cattle ranching here, a cattle pastures, because what happens is that if you plant almendra in cattle pastures, the grass dies underneath that almendra.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
I think you have more questions.
Not at the moment.
Okay, so I think another very important advantage is that land clearing here is done in the shade versus chopping in the sun, and I got that directly from the farmer. I said, man, explain to me what do you like about the inga cropping system? He said, one of the best things is that I'm working in the shade. Why? Because as he's coppicing, he's in the shade versus chopping grass when the sun is very, very hot. So that again is an advantage that farmers share with us. I am winding down and I'm moving into some recommendations here. And so to answer the question, if you observe closely in this picture, the top picture, you will see that all of that was an inga plat. I think that is after several weeks of pruning, of coppicing. So that is basically how the plat looks after it has been coppiced. So some of the recommendations is that you identify a well-drained area for plat establishment. This species does not do well in waterlogged soils. And so you are going to have challenges if you have a waterlogged soil, because it just does not do well there. As long as the soil is well drained, even if it is degraded, the inga is going to grow. We recommend that on slopes, we use the A-frame to form your contours along the line, along the slope of that land. And that really helps in erosion control. On flat land, we recommend establishing your alleys in a east to west direction orientation to ensure that the crops within the alleys get maximum sunlight versus establishing north to south, which is going to impact the amount of sunlight that these crops are going to have. And we also recommend that we transplant saplings instead of direct planting of seeds. Some of the farmers had, so we also did it at Yasha in establishing one of our demonstration plots. We did direct planting of seeds, and the results were very, very poor for several reasons. I mean, at a young stage, you know, the young inga is very susceptible to damage from insects and other critters that are going to damage it, but also very susceptible to mammals. Mammals love the seeds. So if you plan on getting seeds and you have agoutis and gibnuts in your area, you kind of want to ensure that you fence up your nursery to ensure that they just come in and to ensure that they don't come in and eat out those inga seeds. Also, so the transplanting is important. After like I said earlier, 3 to 4 months, you transplant them, and you should have very high a very high success rate if you transplant them. But if you do direct planting of seeds, the success rate is very, very low. And that really is my presentation. I want to then now ask you know, if we could have more questions. I want to thank you for your interest in inga cropping. I also want to say that we'll be more than happy to you know, put you in touch with farmers who have this system. If anybody's interested in visiting, I think it is something that we can coordinate. If you are interested in seeds, we can put you in touch with farmers who have seeds, and then you can move from there at establishing inga cropping system within your farms. For me, I have an inga cropping system here on my farm, and one of the big plus for me is that it really has allowed me to cultivate corn, beans, without having to go very far. I have it right here behind my home, and I do use firewood in the kitchen, and that really has also helped in me having firewood right beside my home. And so Yeah, thank you very much for your interest. Thank you very much for your questions. I'm hoping that if you have other questions, you can ask them, and so that we can, continue this discussion. We have several, like I mentioned earlier, we have at least 19 demonstration plots in these communities where we work. The best way for us to have gotten farmers to actually become interested in establishing these inga plots was by us taking them to Honduras. That really worked magic with our farmers, because then they hear from their fellow farmers their experiences, their concerns, their successes, and that is what really has allowed us to now have farmers who are actually expanding their plots on their own. And so, yeah, I invite anybody who has the time, who has the interest, to visit here in the Maya Golden landscape to see the plots, share the experience with the farmers, let them tell you their experience with the system. I guess that is really the best way to answer the questions that you may have.
Karen had a couple of questions. Do you have any videos of any of the farm projects?
Yes, we do have an inga. I think we have several. We have videos on our website on inga yashe.org. You can get videos. We have photos as well that I guess can be shared of the inga alley cropping system and farms being and crops being cultivated within that system. Some of the most common crops that farmers are cultivating within that system is corn and beans. Some of them have planted vegetables as well, and some root crops, cassava, yams, yampe, cocoa, and all of that is, they do very well within the system.
And have you had any experience with vanilla?
No, we have not had experience with vanilla, except for a few farmers who have integrated vanilla into their cacao agroforestry farms. We have farmers who have integrated vanilla, but more black pepper. Vanilla, I think, is it has a lot of it is from what I've read. The whole pollination issue is a challenge. So we have not had much farmers within the Maya Golden landscape integrating vanilla. We have more farmers doing black pepper.
And do they sell the black pepper to the spice farm or to somebody else down there?
The truth of it is that the demand for these products coming from these agroforestry farms is very high. So these farmers basically they don't have to go outside of their community to sell these products. I know, for example, a farmer in San Miguel who harvested quite a maybe, I think he said 50 or 75 pounds of black pepper, and he sold all of that right within the community. I know another farmer in Golden Stream who sells, I think he has a market in Belize City for his black pepper. So yeah, the farmers are producing, but there is a demand for it.
That's great for them.
Yes, no, really it is. It is about him increasing the income streams for the families within the Maya Golden landscape. That is our focus, and so to be able to diversify the amount of crops coming from the agroforestry system really allows farmers to generate more income for their family.
Do you know what they have their black pepper growing on?
In the two cases, they have it growing on Madre Cacao.
Okay.
Within the cacao agroforestry system.
Okay. And Karen noted in the chat that there's a local farmer, I think here, who is giving classes in growing vanilla and believes there's a huge market.
Okay, that's good to know. Do you know who his name?
I think she's looking for it.
Okay. Yeah, I know that you do have some farmers who are planting vanilla, but I think the challenge with vanilla really is the number of beans and the amount of you know, effort that has to be put into getting a couple of beans. I mean, you really have to get a premium for that vanilla for it to be able to make money.
And that's one of the bees that, because we tried growing some vanilla here and tried pollinating it by hand with no success. But it was my understanding that the vanilla bee was the special kind of bee that could get down in there and pollinate it, and it's gone.
You see, and that is why for us at Yashe Conservation Trust becomes very important for us to document, you know, our native pollinators, our native bee species, to ensure that we have this kind of information to be able to share with individuals who might know, you know, which species do these kind of specialized pollinations, because we do have these specialized pollinations within the ecosystem. And many times when we do these clear cuts, you know, just clearing out of the land and from its vegetation, we're really doing more than just destroying trees. We are actually destroying all of these beneficial insects, you know, our natural pollinators, our natural predators. I mean, really, we are disrupting the ecosystem, because, you know, when we lose these species, the ripple effect that it has on the ecosystem sometimes comes back in the form of us trying to, you know, pollinate, trying to do what these bees have evolved to do, and we cannot do it like them. So, I mean, it is about conserving as much as possible our standing forests, so that we can so we can ensure that we have our native pollinators and our natural enemies for these injurious insects that can become a problem in our crops when we have an imbalance in the ecosystem.
Do all of your beekeepers, I noticed they had on their full suits, are all the bees that they work with to get your honey, are they all the Africanized bees?
Yes, we are working with Africanized bees in the Maya Golden landscape. We do have we have like 27 beekeepers, and all of them work with Africanized bees. Me personally, I am working with some stingless bees. I have 6 species that I'm working with, you know, trying to understand the best practices. But again, you know, that we need to have the research to be able to inform decision making on, you know, how it is that we can get beekeeping with the native bees to be profitable. I mean, I know we have other countries where, you know, this might be available, but you know, I think it is important for us to do research here in Belize of our native bee species. So yeah, we do have all of our farmers using Africanized bees.
Does anybody have any other questions for Gustavo? Very, very informative presentation. Thank you so much.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Mary's asking if those are inga trees growing behind where you are.
No, I am on my veranda. Actually, I have some trumpet trees. I have some rambutan. I have mangoes, lemons, mahogany, cedar. So no, those are not inga. My inga plant is a little farther down. Actually coppiced 4 rows, and I'll be planting some corn. Yeah.
And so each year, can you continue to use the same alleys? I mean, like just coppice the trees again? And
yes, but then I mean, that is so. If you remember, my recommendation was to have at least 4 plots, so that you can move around. So okay, so if you just have one big plot, you can just say, you know what, this year I'm going to coppice these 3 rows. Next year I'm going to coppice the other 3 rows. The following year I'm going to coppice the other 3 rows, so that when you come back to this first row where you started, those have regenerated, and those are, I mean, you have all your biomass on the ground, you have all the canopy formed already, and so that is how we recommend that you use the system.
okay. Ah. So Karen is thanking you so much for your excellent talk, and on the ProOrganic website, we have like a business directory, you might say.
Okay.
And so you'll be getting a nice ad there from Yakshay, or not Yakshay.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, really, it is my pleasure to share this, and I share, I share on behalf of Yakshay, because we really care about the whole sustainable use of our natural resources. That is at the core of the work that we do. Harmony between nature and human development for the benefit of both really is our vision, because we really think that it is possible, but it means that it has to be, you have to make a conscious effort to, you know, try to create that balance, and neither is more important, equally important. And so for us, sharing you know, information with as a wide audience as possible is always a pleasure. And so yeah, I'm happy to share our experience. I think that more and more we are getting we had a visit from sugarcane farmers from the north earlier this year or late last year. Again, when they came, they were like, man, we need inga seeds, we have to take them up north, because you know, it's about restoring the degraded soils in these farms. And so just a couple of weeks ago, they came and they bought many inga saplings that they're going to be planting in their farms to start the whole process of soil restoration. And so for me, maybe I don't know if we have more questions, but maybe in closing, what I think the message I want to leave with the audience really is that it is always easier to protect what we have, and I'm talking of our natural resources, the soil. It is always better for us to protect our soil now, ensure that we have it alive, ensure that all of these natural processes are occurring within the soil, than to have to go back and restore, because restoration work is very, very hard. It's very hard to get it back to where it was. And so for me, I better protect the soil as much as I can now, so that it doesn't become degraded. And I really, really think that the use of cover crops and an inga cropping system is a very good way of ensuring that our soils remain alive. Not just for cultivation, but also for all the other benefits that it provides to us as humans. So I really, really I'm honored to be able to share our experience in inga cropping system, because we need to protect our soil so that we don't have to worry about restoring. Let us protect it before we have to restore it.
Carolyn from Tide says, Gustavo for president.
Yeah, I'm reading the chat. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I really think so. I'm convinced of that.
Okay, any other questions for Gustavo? And again, we really appreciate you taking the time and sharing all this information with us. It's like, wow.
It's my pleasure. It really is my pleasure. Yeah.
Okay. If you can stop sharing your screen for a moment. All right. And just a couple of things to wrap up. Our next ProOrganic meeting will actually be live and in person instead of on Zoom at Guavalem. downtown San Ignacio on August 16th. All members are very welcome to attend. And if you want to contact Pro Organic with any questions or anything, it's proorganicbeliefs@gmail.com. And again, our webpage has tons of information, and it will have this recording posted up there in a couple of days. And our next speaker meeting, I hope I'm correct in this, Mary, will be also somebody from the Toledo district, Dr. Thomas Matthew from the Belize Spice Farm. And they have started making lemongrass oil. So he's going to give us a demonstration or a how-to or something on that. So, and we'll send out the Zoom information. Carolyn wants to know how to reach Gustavo if we want to follow up.
Well, I shared my Gustavo. You can get me on my phone. My phone is let me see if I can put it in the chat. Okay. So G. All right, it's small G. Kindly remove the G, the letter.
All right, so anyone can contact Gustavo directly with his cell phone or at his email address.
Yeah, or you can reach out to Yashe. Yeah, I mean, you reach out to Yashe and you can get in touch with me. Yashe.org. Visit our website and you definitely can get in touch with me.
Great. Okay, well, I think we will call it an afternoon. It looks like the bugs are coming out where you are at that time of day. And everyone enjoy the rest of your evening. And thank you again so much.
Well, thanks to everyone. It was my pleasure sharing with you.
Yes, so
Thank
Mary.
you.